Yeah.
And it's 5:57 for heaven's sake.
Did they show up at your house? They never did? They could have tried.
I'll bet they tried. You're a hater.
What'd you get?
So I gotta try everything, like lemons, vanilla, so we're all really.
I saw a video of you, like.
Eating them like this?
Don't know you're in it.
I know, she got a tour, the grand tour of the band.
Got him kind of, yeah, they said, I love you. My sister lived on the corner, and they're like, do you love her? I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, so I hopped in the truck. There you go.
Hopped in the van.
See, again,
Yeah.
it's not much, it's
Amazing how they can get you, coax you into the van.
A white van, stranger.
Candy.
Bit of cake tomorrow. It's fine.
Yeah, we just debated in favor of one, the white chocolate.
No, he called me. I was already.
That's surprising.
Little bit bigger on your phone.
Out of town.
No, I have to hold my phone like that, right? It's kind of like this. If I go like that, then they want us to do one contact, you know, one, whatever. And I said, no, not yet. So now I hold my phone like that. Accessibility setting.
Okay, you ready, Larry? Recording? All right, at 6 o'clock, we'll call to order this regular meeting of the Pleasant View City Council this Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, opening prayer, reading, or expression of thought by Council Member Steve Gibson.
Guys, please rise and repeat the pledge of allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're indeed thankful we have this opportunity to serve the citizens of Pleasant View this time. Father, as we make decisions, help us to make the right ones that will benefit and keep our community safe and productive. Thankful for the first responders. Please be with them. Help them to know of our appreciation, keep them safe, protected as well. We're thankful for all the things, all the many blessings that we enjoy, and for this wonderful community we have to live in and participate in. Again, we're thankful for all that we have. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, David. Item 1B is declaration of conflicts of interest. Have you reviewed the agenda? Are there any conflicts to declare? Seeing none, we'll move to 1C, public comments, questions for the mayor or council, limited to 3 minutes. Any members of the public wish to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent items. Item 2, minutes of March 11th, 2025, both open and closed, and March 25th, 2025, open and closed. And the bills of Pleasant View City.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent items as stated.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, presentation of a check to Pleasant View City for the pickleball project from the Pleasant View Pickleball Association. Pickleball Paul.
pickleball ball. So, on behalf of the Pleasant View Pickleball Association, we present to Pleasant View City this egg check in the amount of $155,000. This represents cash donations we've received. There are a considerable number of in-kind donations also that are not reflected in this amount. So we are very grateful for those that have supported us in this effort to help the project move along. So we're happy to turn the funds over and say, make it happen. Get started. Okay, I think.
You get Ann down there, so you can sound about the comment.
Yeah. Come on. Let's get it up.
All right.
Yeah. No, you're gonna do it. We're gonna get our friend over there to do it.
Come around this way.
Make layers here. There you go. Well, there's already even. Oh, you're dead. The other one.
Thank for all the effort.
Yeah. Okay, get one of you and then we'll get it down. Ready? Right.
Yeah, way to go. That's not easy to do.
Oh,
No, it's not.
We're now not right here. Yes.
All right, item 4. 4A is the rezone. It's a public hearing to consider a rezone for 6.54 acres of land located at approximately 2573 North Highway 89 from planned manufacturing MP1 to mixed use west. Weaver County parcel 17674 and 176637 ordinance 2025-11. Tammy.
Okay. So this is a follow-up to a rezone that we did a month or two ago. For the Fleming property, this is Young Power Sports has requested the same rezone to mixed use west. Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider the rezone from MP1 to mixed use west.
Tammy, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yes, sir.
I forgot something. You said I'd entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second the motion. Okay, motion by Yuri, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now continue. Thank you.
Continuing. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider the rezone back in March, on March 6th. As I said, it's in conjunction with the rezone for the Fleming property in that same area. The Planning Commission made a recommendation of approval to the City Council with the recommendations of staff, and the motion was passed unanimously. The proposed amendment is for the 6.54 acres of land at approximately 2529 North US Highway 89. The intent of the manufacturing zone is to permit the establishment of well-designed complex manufacturing facilities to the community of region, which will minimize traffic congestion, public streets. There's some developers that have presented a concept plan of doing a mixed use development in that area with commercial and residential. This would possibly become part of that. They're rezoning so that they can potentially be part of that mixed use development. City Council will consider a rezone from MP1 to mixed use west. Approval of this proposed zone change would enable the city to align with the new ordinances outlined in the general plan and future land use map.
Okay, any questions? Look like we haven't. Recommendation to pass it by the planning commission? Steve?
Just a couple clarifications and comments, maybe. I don't have anything negative to say about it, but we put this forward for that piece of property specifically to have this mixed use on it to be able to attract a commercial part of it. Now we're, we are going south or west or east, whatever you call it, Mayor. Now we're going up against the actual,
Forrest Thomas.
yeah, the forest, whatever that manufacturing area, and I know they had problems with the initial thing. Is there something that we're not looking forward to, or looking, I don't want to just blanket approve it, just without thinking about it, I know.
Well, I think that would have to come at the next step when they bring in their concept plans or their.
But
their site plan.
opening that up, changing the zone is a big deal, because it does allow, does that make sense? We kind of put this zone as a piece, as part of that Fleming piece. And now it's spreading.
Well,
I-
they're trying to incorporate that current piece into the whole thing in order to get the road
Yeah, that's what I was.
and not interfere with, J.M. Thomas's
So
operation.
I don't,
Relocate.
I'm not trying to say anything negative about it. It just seems like, where does it end? I don't know, or is that?
I see what you're saying. Sorry, I did think though, when we initially passed it, it was any property west of Highway 89 that we would allow,
Well,
to
I mean,
be considered for that.
it was specifically, in my opinion, was for that Fleming
start
piece.
of that.
To have a residential component to a commercial development. And we always said, I want to see the commercial first before I see
That's how it's written.
something.
It's written 75%.
And so, now we're spreading that love into that next piece. I don't know how big that is, the power sports part of their building and stuff.
Of their
I know that there's a retention basin down there too, or detention basin that's not utilized at this point.
building covers.
Well,
this.
and I just don't know, are they, anyway, I want to think it out and vet it. I know that the planning commission has done that, apparently, hopefully. But is there any negative that we're not looking at, I guess, that's my question bringing it up.
Well, I personally, we've looked at a lot of proposals, for that area, and they've all included Young in order to get the road
Okay.
to the south. With possible, Young's looking at relocating a little to the north, so they can put the road right down where, kind of where the building is now. To avoid the J.M. Thomas, and the road would be a good barrier, actually, in my opinion, between.
And that's fine, but
and J.M.
I don't want J.M. Thomas to be affected, because, that was a big issue that they said,
They've been involved in.
because we are they are manufacturing, and if it's like, you move in next to a pig farm. Well, the pig farm's been there for 1,000 years. Now we don't like the smell of the flies, and I want to make sure that, because that was kind of a little bit of a buffer. So I don't know.
If you look at property, do they own all of
So,
it? This property, this-
no,
But
it's-
sorry, Mayor, and I'm not trying to make a big deal out of anything. I
that's what
wanted
you're
to,
saying.
I wanted to think about it. Without
As
just,
the proposals came through, I personally thought it made a lot of sense in order to help facilitate moving Young to and getting the road in. That's been the biggest problem we've had is really the roads coming in
Would-
off the 89.
Paul, I don't know what Young's plans are. Are they planning on moving west?
Well, they want to try to.
Incorporate inside of
incorporate
this.
Inside the
They-
whole thing,
Yeah, they do want to try and incorporate into the new development.
Okay.
so kind of north. or
There
west,
was
yeah.
discussion that unless Young rebuilt their facility, that it would stay kind of grandfathered as is and not be separate than the mixed use component of that.
So they would actually then
Development.
have to build.
So they would
more
have
commercial,
to,
'cause
they
that
would have to
yeah.
rebuild it to be counted as part of that density.
It's so dependent on UDOT. Every proposal we've had come to us is totally UDOT's version, because.
Right out there,
road.
yeah.
So that's what they're trying to do, is trying to. Cause, you know.
And I understand, and I
Young
understand,
Clark, see, if you come along 2550, you run right into
right.
Young.
So that's what they want to move that farther that way.
And I don't wanna get in that way either. I mean, I wanna see that corner develop. It's a great corner and hopefully something can happen. And if that's the positive that comes of this, then I'm all for it.
Well, yeah, cause it's basically already built, so it would be, trying to make it part of the overall piece to get, mainly for the roads.
And I was unaware that Young Power Sports was planning on moving. This is the first I've heard of that. I don't know. Does everybody else know that?
I didn't
No,
know.
they-
Well,
they-
yeah,
they
I kind of
haven't brought
assumed it.
anything more than a concept plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I assumed that
Yeah.
they'd have to make the road.
The zone is written though, there is protections in place that they still only, even with them moving, only get a 25% housing developments. So, and the commercial has to come first, even though if that's grandfathered, they still have to have the entire project has to be 75% commercial and
Right.
25%
Right.
housing, so.
So can I clarify what you said, Tammy? If they they can't really include this commercial unless it gets rebuilt as part of the
part of the
the
basic-
residential portion
Yeah,
of
as
it,
part
right?
of what has been presented as a concept for that full, mixed use development.
Okay,
So how big is the Fleming piece? Just,
24 acres?
so 25 acres plus 6, so.
There's
so
several lots
31
there.
acres, really?
Yeah, for me, it's just, as long as it doesn't have a negative impact at some point upon the JM Thomas.
No, I think it
business,
would help.
I think, yeah, putting the road in, I think would, sounds like they've been at the table, talk a little bit at least. And I think we can address that more when, at the building permit
The fact has
timing.
been very reasonable and good to work with. I think they.
It's warehousing for lumber, It's a
They're
rail,
manufactured.
rail yard, They do some
Wholesale.
wholesale, yeah.
The Fleming property is almost 20 acres, I didn't all these.
Okay, any members of the public wish to speak to this?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Arrington, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Back to the council. Any further comments, questions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we, go forward with this rezone as stated in item 4A, referencing ordinance 2025-11.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. This will be a roll call vote. Arrington.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Marriott.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Yuri. Motion carries, all voting yes. Didn't I call it? All right, item 4B, zone text amendment, public hearing. Consider a zone text amendment to the municipal code to add 18.11 residential zone RE5 to provide regulated areas for multifamily residential use under qualifying high density designation, 8 to 14 dwelling units per acres, as set forth in the general plan ordinance 2025-12. Applicant Jordan Watson from Newtown Homes LLC, presenter Tammy. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved. Second that motion.
Motion by Arrington, second by Yuri. All in favor, say aye. Yeah. Tammy.
Hey, this one has a little bit of history with it too. Back in February, this was brought to the planning commission as kind of a two-part application. One for zone text amendment to create a new high-density residential zone, calling it RE5 zoning for townhomes. And then also along with that was the application to rezone the property to that new zone. We worked with these developers for quite some time, as a lot of you know, and it was kind of a long process of putting together the ordinance. The developers came forward with a new zone ordinance that was presented to staff. There was a lot of back and forth and some revisions made to that ordinance. And ultimately, it came to the planning commission in February and was presented with the red lines that were made by staff and after talks with the DRC and the engineer and everyone, the concerns were with the bonus density language. The general plan amendment that was approved prior was for a maximum of up to 8 units per acre. And the bonus density that the applicants proposed could give them up to 14 units per acre, which was contrary to the general plan. And when this was brought to planning commission, there was a recommendation it was motioned that there was a recommendation to city council for approval with removing the bonus density language completely. And so at that point, the applicant decided to table the zone, obviously, because we hadn't come to a full agreement on the new ordinance. And then ultimately, they requested that we just kind of hold off on the whole application for both proposals. And so then after a little bit of time, they brought it back and said they wanted to move forward with the rezone, with the zone ordinance text amendment. So that's where we're at today. As I said, went to planning commission in February, and the planning commission recommended approval, or recommend that the city council approve with the bonus density removed from the zone.
And that would match what we had anyway with what we approved with the future land use.
Right.
The general.
Right.
General.
Any members of the public wish to address this?
We do have the applicant or the petitioner representative here.
Hi, my name is Brad Brown. I'm with Stewart Land Company. We're actually under contract with Triad to purchase it from them. And we originally, came in expecting that higher density, but as we, went to the planning commission meeting and then since met with Tammy and Sarah and met the mayor and realized we want to be aligned with what the city wants. And so we're trying to make that work with 8 units an acre. There was, so we're hoping that this gets approved tonight so that we know that we can do something. And there was one thing, and we've discussed it a little bit, item, is it C?
Setbacks.
7. There's mentions setbacks from the highway right of way and from the railroad right of way. And a 50-foot setback is a pretty large setback relative. And,
Oh, here you go. C number 7.
yeah.
Site development standard.
And so our hope today is that we can get this approved, but without that provision. Sarah and I have talked about it a lot, and Tammy and I, and setbacks are there for a reason, for safety, for site distances, for access for utilities, and that 50-foot setback becomes excessive and almost prohibitive, especially on a skinny parcel.
Can I give some context
Sure.
for our conversation? So we met with Brad, Amy and Tammy and I did, and we contacted UDOT, and UDOT doesn't require it doesn't have a minimum or a maximum standard. But on our 2700, in our ordinance language right now, we require 20-foot setbacks for the commercial businesses there. And so in the discussion that we had with you, that 20 feet seemed, provisional applicable to this situation as well. And so seeing as UDOT didn't require anything less or more than what we, it didn't require 50 feet.
Mhm.
What about the railroad?
That's different.
Yeah,
We haven't.
I
talked
think
to the
50
city
feet's
about that,
pretty
so.
So, and
for an
Yes,
active railway.
to do some research. Yeah, the railroad itself doesn't have any
Okay.
standards.
Yeah.
And we did reach out to a lot of engineers and planners, and we couldn't find any actual, that anything applying to that. And if it would help, I've got some, we went up and down kind of Pleasant View and some other cities and measured. And, most buildings are at least 50 feet away from the railroad, from like center of railroad. But, if you've got a 60 or 80-foot wide right of way,
Mhm.
then that, obviously backs it
As
up.
long as the
quite a
building
bit.
is the
Right.
right way.
And would you guys like to see that? Would that be helpful to see these? Or
It's helpful to know what you're saying. I agree with you that the setback from the railroad. Thank you. From the property line would be hard. That's.
Yeah, so if you would. Yeah, so this one, this is 15 feet away.
Yeah, I mean,
You want to see what I said?
So this is still, if you follow.
Yeah, and we talked to our planners and they're like, there's not a.
But in our discussions too, we talked about, the closer you are, the more complaints that we're gonna get as a city, and so we talked about sound walls and things like that to mitigate the impact of being so close to the railroad.
Is that something where this is your ordinance for any situation, not just this specific area, that the Board of Adjustments would come in that scenario if,
Or
rather
DRC.
than changing your zoning for everyone or every application?
And this is not this is just the proposed language for this one, so this is not.
We don't have it in any
It's
other
not
zone.
someplace.
We only have 20 feet in other zones. That's 50 feet was for this particular zone. In all of our other zones, it's 20.
Yeah, and so you've got a more condensed area of people already, and so if you're putting them between a highway and a railroad track, maybe
Yeah.
that would be more applicable in this scenario. It's new to me as well as anybody else, but that's just something I would think of in that scenario, is you're gonna have that many more people
Right.
packed in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's. If you go through Ogden, and I agree, there's no uniform setbacks for railways, because there's some, right, I mean, because they used to build it so they could offload from the cars, right? It's part of the commercial development. But it's mainly, I think it's just market driven. Somebody's gonna, if they're gonna put their house or their building 5 feet from the road, they're gonna be the one that bear the burden of that being there.
And there are rear yard setbacks, inherent in the code that would,
Yeah.
would keep your way as well. So, because you're right, that market factor is important to us. I mean, we don't wanna, if we build right on the railroad, then
Yeah, it's
no one
not-
buys it and.
That came up in our discussion as well as if, but my biggest concern was safety.
Mhm.
And, lessen the burden on staff with people calling to complain or things like that. And so,
Well, yeah, that's,
yeah, but,
And-
20 feet was this, what,
I'm not sure.
what
it's
we
gonna make a lot.
talked about.
I don't care if you're 20 feet or 50 feet, it's gonna be the same.
Yeah.
Vibrate your house, figure
It's better for people to be able to develop the product. The
Yeah,
50-foot
I guess
setback
in my
is
mind, I'm
challenging.
wondering if, and looking at these examples, if 50 foot from the center of line of the right of way is more appropriate than 50 foot from the edge of the right of way. 'Cause that could be, I mean, based on what I'm seeing here, I don't know, just a thought
Do we
question.
know what the station setback is? Cause that's probably more realistic of this, right? I don't think you did this one.
To that,
15?
yeah.
It was 15 feet
15 feet
from the
but
highway,
From the right of way.
from the property line.
from the right away, I believe. I think that's-
So-
yeah.
They have a road going right down through there.
Road.
Pardon?
Is there a building? Is there a building? Is there a building? Like 20 feet to that, they can-
No,
Railroad.
yeah, I'm talking about the railroad side.
No, not the railroad. We were talking about Highway 89. I'm not
Well,
sure.
we're
that we
talking about
measured
the
from
railroad.
Yeah,
I-
I'm more worried about the.
I don't think I was able to find anything that it didn't show anything from the railroad. when I looked at the plans.
They just need to, the owners just need to be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you look at the very next item on those site development standards, I don't love it because it's an
Yeah.
expensive one for me, but it requires a berm or a dense foliage or some kind of barrier. So it is,
Well, I live up here and I can still hear the trains.
I live in Riverdale and I'm probably 3/4 of a mile from it, but I can totally hear it.
I can hear the trains coming and going and the horns blasting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, I can.
Ann?
At the public hearing.
Okay, we'll wait till.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Nothing, any questions for me or?
Okay, any other members of the public wish to address? All right, I'd move that, I'd entertain a motion that we close the public hearing. Committee forward, sorry.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
By Nelson, second by Harrington, all in favor, say aye. Okay, we'll keep back to the, Ann, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have a concern with the parking with the 2.25 stalls per unit. You know, you go down along, is it 2550 where Majestic is, and we've got those, like, the high density there. There's cars all
Yeah.
over the place because 2.25 is not enough.
Yeah.
Residents are complaining, kids are running in front of, like, I just don't think that's enough personally. So that's something I'd like to look at, and, also just, we have a minimum project size of 3 acres. Do we have a maximum size of the project? I mean, I don't know, I just think that, like, if we approve this zone, then this zone can be applied for anywhere else in the city, right? So, I
Right.
mean, I don't really want to approve this like all over the city,
As long as we agree to rezone the area.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, but I don't really love, I mean, a minimum, you have to have a minimum of 3 acres to do this, but like no maximum limit. So I just have some concerns there about how big this could go.
Is this 8 acres? Is that what it is? 8 acres?
It is.
Is this the same zone that we talked about off of Pleasant View Drive? Isn't that? Cause isn't? What zone would that be that I thought this doesn't this have a patio home density to it too?
This one does, and this is specifically for town.
In
Isn't it
the,
right?
with the red lines, there
Are you
is
talking mixed use?
some
Yeah.
language that,
No, not the mixed use.
yeah, detached, single family and like duplex.
But we do have the patio home zone as well.
Right,
Which-
yeah, we have the new patio, LSFR,
LSFR.
limited
Oh,
single family
okay.
residential.
Okay, but yeah, this did have a
Patio.
patio element to it, yeah.
Are these all owner occupied? There's no rental in this, is there? Is
Yeah.
that, is that a stipulation of the zone at all? I mean, is that,
Not currently, I don't think there's a language in there about owner occupied.
because a townhome typically is owned versus just putting a bunch of rentals in. I don't know. Is that something we can discuss or talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean, in an ordinance, so like a moratorium on,
That's hard, because
Yeah.
how do you tell people that?
Well, I know, but it's just like the station, you know, we got involved with that and all of a sudden it just flew and everything. You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's a mess down there.
yeah, I don't know how you restrict the,
Like,
I don't think.
so a patio home typically is owned.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know what typically would be. You turn it into a bunch of duplexes that are then a problem for.
An HOA might.
Yeah, the covenants, right, the covenants can restrict it, but I
Yes.
think state law doesn't allow us to restrict owner occupied
Okay,
purchases.
Like rent your house and lease it to somebody else and.
and this fully gives us the right of way for the railroad crossing, correct? And that
Well,
easement,
any development adjacent to the railroad crossing has to get with UTA and get their approval, so.
because that's one of the reasons why we're thinking of this, correct? Is to have that crossing in as part of this development? Is that not?
The road.
road?
Splits this property.
Well, like the state legislatures, affordable houses.
That would come up when you do the site and once you
But isn't
put
that,
this zone.
I mean, is that a reason
place.
for this?
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
to,
they've come forward with a proposal, they came forward with a proposal and And that's really the reason. for this one.
Okay.
It does include it, I mean, it is at our location.
I think that the setbacks that the applicant has requested the adjustment are reasonable, considering that's what is around in
So
our city
what
and other cities.
adjustment?
Yeah,
did
what
you
was
see
that?
there?
From 50 feet, for the setback
Yeah.
to 20. Because that's what we have off of 2780 right now, and the station and also the cove, I think 15-foot setbacks from the major thoroughfare, and so 20, I think, is reasonable.
So let's address the minimum project size, maximum project size.
Yeah, what size is this project?
And
Items.
with a
It is 8, had it just 2 seconds ago.
But a minimum, you're saying three, it says three in here.
Yeah.
You're saying
Yeah, with a
On
maximum.
the application, it's like 8.54.
I think you said
that.
eight.
Yeah, so
See the
if
setbacks.
you had an even number of 10, a maximum
10,
of 10.
12,
would
whatever.
Exceed 10 acres for the total project.
So
Yeah, I don't know if
the-
I'm,
The total acreage on the application is 8.127.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable with 10 as a maximum? So that we don't have humongous developments.
we don't have
We don't have-
many pieces of property above 10, so.
yeah, to go anywhere in the whole, could really go anywhere in the city or be
Well.
proposed.
People can request it, we don't have to grant it, but people can request
Yeah, I
it
mean-
if there's not a maximum size for the project. Mixed Use West has a maximum.
Yeah,
So-
I'm not as worried about maximum. I'm worried about these popping up for small parcels.
I agree.
Which I would
So-
almost be more in favor of a minimum. You know, you
Uh,
must have at least.
5 acres.
Well, there is a
Eight
minimum
acre.
on this. It
There
says
is
three.
Three.
Something.
Well, they do have.
Because I mean, to speak bluntly, our concern is constraining, I don't want townhouses throughout the entire city. I don't think it does. So constraining the ability for this zone to be used. That's my biggest concern.
I think we do that through the general plan.
Yeah.
Not through the zone itself.
Well, project-based though, and you can do what he's suggesting with making the project not less than this. You have to have a minimum acreage size of X, Y, Z, so.
I agree, I mean, that's.
But you can you zone to a specific thing like that? I mean,
Well, that's what my concern is. We're really almost, in my mind, creating spot zone here.
Yeah.
And
We-
I think we all agree
Dive in
that
on it.
patio homes is a very important thing, but I think that's a separate thing than what this is looking at.
Yeah.
This is not a patio home development. And I think, and I agree, with Phil, maybe not everything that he's saying, but I'm for patio homes. Even up on the hill, I think that's a great use of some stuff to get the densities down. I'm not a huge fan of what I think is gonna come in here. And we argued about that before, it's kind of off path on the other side of 89 or whatever you wanna say, it's isolated. But that puts a lot of traffic on 89, crossing and doing all this, I don't know, it's hard.
Would that come up in DRC then with those, I guess, as long as because you can make those adjustments in that conversation. If somebody comes before an application or we always have the power to say.
Well,
yes or no
right
on
now,
that.
we basically said the west side of 89 is where we'd entertain this type of stuff, so.
And if somebody wanted it somewhere else, we can always say no.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if it should be a general, I mean, I would like that to be more
Yeah.
defined, and the general plan is the right place to do that.
Yes.
So instead of controlling the acreage here, do it more in the
Yeah.
general plan.
This is where RE5 could be.
Yeah.
Yes, that controls. that.
Which we haven't had the zone, so we couldn't do that before, right?
Yeah,
Right.
but to Steve's point, I don't know the patio homes, that this is the right solution for patio homes, because if we do want them somewhere else in the city.
No,
I
we
don't
have it
know that
though.
we
Well,
would.
aren't we discussing a hilltop patio home zone or,
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, so this could allow for, obviously patio homes can be in multiple zones.
because I think that's separate than
Yeah.
this, and and I hate to loop a patio home into that,
I think you're
because it is, at least my vision is separate from what I think this is going to be. I don't know, I'm not happy with it, but I think it is what it is there. We kind of kicked it down the road a little bit, which is unfortunate. I don't know. What else is gonna go there? I don't know.
What about, I feel pretty strong about the parking stalls.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Cause there is no other place to park. You cannot park in 89. You cannot, and it is, I agree with that. I don't know. You know, every family has two cars.
what did we allow down here? You said it's a problem, so they got more than 2.5?
The stations.
I
No, the
believe,
Cove.
I believe it is 2.25 down there as well, cause
And
it's
it's
kind
just-
of like a blanket standard that they apply, like, you know what I mean?
And it is a mess.
Whatever it is, Cove is not,
Not enough, huh?
Can we ask the developer?
that's probably one of our biggest.
What they would address?
Yeah.
Complaints of
On
I'd like to ask,
2550, and then they go buy boats and trailers and stuff like that, and park them out on 2550, so
Right.
parking from our side of things. Same thing in North Arlington.
let's ask it.
Well, but they will not have an option
To park.
to park on the road. I mean, it will be into that development, or we put no parking on the road, on our railroad crossing road.
Yeah.
And that will severely impact that. So, Ann, you're right.
I just wanted to ask him a question of what we would do to address that, the parking stalls, if we don't feel comfortable with 2.25, what can you do to address that?
All the product we've been looking at would be, car garage, 2 spaces out in front as well. And then we'd also have, you know, offsite, or I mean, you know, visitor parking essentially. And what we've seen is, as far as, a big driver of whether people park in the wrong spot or not is just road width. Sometimes the roads are too wide and you put no parking signs, but there's room, people park there. But typically, you know, if we've got, you know, technically 4 spots for somebody to park, you know, 2 in a garage, 2 outside of the garage, plus visitor parking. And that's another thing that goes to the marketability. If we're full up and we don't have a place to park, then we can't rent. So we're usually just as or more sensitive to having enough parking, because that's a,
But in the zone, it says 2.5,
2.25.
Well,
2.25 per unit. Garages and driveways can be utilized to meet up to the 2.25. So you're saying 2.25 per unit. That doesn't include if you're going on the road or in the garage, right? Like, the way you're talking makes me feel like you're saying they have 4 per unit.
Yeah.
But that's not written in here.
wait,
Yeah, that's the 4, I think he's saying development, probably have at least 4. So that's what I'm wondering, would you be concerned if this was amended to say 4?
Or 3.
where it comes into
3.5.
play is if you have, smaller units,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes you have a 2-car garage, sometimes you have a 1-car garage. And, you know, for us, market drives that. You know, if it's a one bedroom, 1-car garage, we're not concerned that they have parking stalls. Cause they probably won't need them.
Yeah, I know it's valid and bedroom, I don't know, the market does drive it to an extent, but my rentals. The people don't know until they move in that the parking is a giant disaster, so it's.
So how would you do this in the zone then?
What,
Bedroom based, square footage based, I don't know. I mean, that's how we do commercial.
Still average it. It'd still be parking
3?
or 3.25, bump it up by 1 parking stall
well,
per unit.
so from my experience, like the Cove has, you know, a garage, 2-car parking garage, but 80% of the cars won't fit in it, you know, because it's not. So what defines a parking space, you know, and
State code actually, isn't there?
Well,
There
this-
are certain minimums. We usually, you can get a smaller, garage that fits a car or a compact car. What we always look at is, can I fit an F-150 in, you know, because
The.
That's pretty common.
Particular development though doesn't have
Yeah.
it. But again, it's zone language, they don't have a 2550 around there, they've got Highway 89. And,
All the more reason, in my opinion, to
Yeah.
have more built in.
but I don't even think you that would let you park on Highway.
No, they won't.
There's no way.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's 2.2. Car garage, the tiny little driveway, 0.25.
Can't open the door.
Spot behind it, can't park a car, right? So it is a major problem. I mean, 3 is much different than 2.6.
So
Yeah.
3, if we were to say 3, is that, you'd be like, hopefully something that, but
Uh,
3 is,
Um,
we're
it-
concerned. We have no
Yeah,
problem.
I understand the concern.
I'm just saying 3 though is much different than the garage is full and there's 2 cars in the driveway at least.
I think 3 is probably.
Cause I'm picturing, at least, you know, like when you go out to Roy, some of those places, the driveway is only 6 feet anyway. And then you have the sidewalk or, you know, something, and you can't pull a car. It might be a parking slot, but you cannot pull 2 cars next to each other
Side by
without
side.
having it being in the street. Yeah. And that's probably this is gonna look like too, which then forces all those cars out somewhere else, which is, it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
It's on Highway 89, and you can't park on Highway 89, but.
my Airbnb got for 9 car parking and I've never parked more than 4 cars there. So it's I mean, it is what the square footage that defines a parking spot and what reality is. So I agree. That's my only concern with this.
And typically the size of the driveway is determined by your front setbacks, which is typically 20 feet, and that's what we would feel comfortable with anyways. You know, because I know there are some places where it's not really a parking spot behind the garage door, but sell it that way, and technically in code, it probably is not counted as a parking spot. And, but people try and use it, but yeah, we would be a you know, a garage and then a 20-foot driveway. You fit.
Yeah, I don't think it's a concern about your development. I think it's how somebody else might come in and use the zone. of
Right.
Their development.
So, Anne, what do you see?
I think, well, it's not actually like Phil's saying 2.25 doesn't mean you're gonna have 2.25 cars. So personally, I wanna go to 3.25. That's where I'm comfortable, but that's my opinion. We can negotiate it, but
Well, you know, if we say it, I mean, he can give us all the lip service he wants, but it's really, you know, when we get there, it doesn't seem right, cause all the other places are the same thing, and they're all messes, they're all a nightmare.
Yeah.
All these places, they jam as many places in, and so,
For any neighborhood, it's the same, as soon as the winter band's over, you got.
Neighbors across the
yeah.
street.
I wish I could solve stupid, when people park where they're not supposed to, or ignore, you know, what they're supposed to do, and I unfortunately, I can't solve that.
But we try to, you know, we try to forward, and
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be a mess no matter what it is, whether it be 3.25 or 4,
And,
I don't know, cause that's to give, he has to give up houses or something
I know.
for that, which then ends up costing money for the development, which,
right.
and I've also seen,
but-
go ahead.
but it's the right thing. I think that's what Ann and
It
Phil are
should
talking
stay
about.
10, but then again, it has to be enforced.
Well, but it has to be realistic, you know, 2.25, what is you know, is that a motorcycle? I don't know.
No, usually it's a visitor parking for every 4th unit, you know, for
So,
that type of thing.
but
Yes, you got, you know, a couple living there and then a teenager and then they have a boat or a trailer, like.
And there are
there's a
semi
friend that comes over, like,
Yeah, so I'm up for, yeah, I think realistically, you're not gonna get a unit less than 4. Maybe it's 3.5, so 3 plus, but if you're gonna do 3, you're gonna do.
And I've seen it. I would caution against going too high on number, because then it's just limiting on product type and what you can get. And I've seen cities on the other side where they've put, you know, heavy parking numbers. And then they come back and they're like, now we have a sea of parking, you know, and now they're wanting to back that off. And there's issues either way. But
see, I don't think that's true, honestly. I mean, I think,
Depends on the area, I'm sure.
yeah, I mean, you look at these developments, it's jam packed with cars. And then the parking on the street is just a mess. So why can't we look forward to that and try to eliminate a little bit of that by putting a little more parking where it's more comfortable for the you know, for the things. They're already facing 89, they're already facing the railroad,
Right. Mhm.
you know, I don't know, and I don't know how much that is. What?
Two parking spaces per dwelling unit, it actually brings up Pleasant View, is the average for town home developments. And 0.25 space per unit for guest parking, so 2.25, that's the average
And we know what's the problem.
in Pleasant View,
In
yeah,
Pleasant- in
so,
Pleasant.
so. 2.2. The only thing about his development is he doesn't have a 25/50, and UDOT will not let people park on Highway 89.
Your walkability is substantially lower.
Yes,
Just
and so,
getting
but,
any-
it's
They
for
could-
other green.
They could catch a train.
They would get it on the station.
Yeah, well, no, they go slow through there.
Yeah.
Is no street to park on. Except-
But Sarah, you gotta remember, this is for everywhere.
Well, that's what I was going to say right after that.
Well,
Okay, sorry.
but now I have a question. So let's say a development comes in with, one bedroom. Do we need 3.5 parking spots for a one bedroom townhouse?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were just talking about. Most, I think, get to 4, you got a lot of houses, single family homes in Pleasant View that don't have 4, you know, I mean. So that's a lot. But that's the, we were just
Yeah.
talking about a single, well, a studio apartment that they put in or a single, you know.
So I think you're right, the square footage per unit.
Or number of
is-
bedrooms or
Number of bedrooms.
something, I
could
don't
be
know.
a-
Square footage is 320 square feet is the average size for a parking stall in a town.
We do our commercial based off square footage and parking. That's the way we do our commercial.
Yeah, so could you say
Nine
every
foot.
1,000 square feet, you need 2 parking stalls?
That would be better than the stalls. You park
Awesome.
measure it by-
I don't know if that's a
Townhouses,
good number.
1,200, 1,300 square feet.
It's parallel parking, compact
1,500.
parking, handicap parking.
Why don't we just, well, why don't we just come in at 3.25 or 3.5?
What would like the barn golf course or something, what's the parking in there? Or what's the other development?
Parallel.
No, not the station, you got the barn and then you got the next one east.
Both?
No.
8.6 wide on
Pleasant Meadows. You know, Pleasant Meadows is kind of what I'm thinking of here, because they have very little, you know, they have 2-car garages, very short driveways, and they do not allow any parking on the street.
let's see.
And so I don't know,
That's with their HOA
Yeah, the-
enforcing that.
and they, yeah, but they, you know, those are nice homes. And they fit them in there and it is enforced. There's no parking on the streets there. They do have some guest parking. Lower, it would be lower.
So they have the garages in front of their home. And
I don't know.
those aren't townhomes, those are like duplex.
You know, duplexes, I mean, they're a,
So
density wouldn't be quite as much as that.
and Andrea was just looking at, a new thing that the legislature just passed. Municipality that is specified, municipality that is specified municipality may not require that the dimensions of a single parking space for a 1 or 2 family dwelling or townhome be for unobstructed, enclosed or covered parking more than 10 feet wide or more than 20 feet long, or uncovered parking more than 9 feet wide or more than 20 feet long. So you can't have a parking space bigger than 200 square feet.
Is that you can't require that, is that what you're saying?
Can't require it.
Average is 320 square feet. That was just, yeah, that just passed.
So we can-
Well, that solves that then.
Well,
So your F-150 is not gonna fit
It
in.
doesn't say anything
Right.
about the density of parking stalls though, right?
Oh, you could say 4,
Well-
but it would end up being about the same, 320.
yeah.
Actually, an F-150 does fit in that. Yeah, I mean, 72 wide, 19.47 long, I think, if I'm remembering right. And
How big is that?
commercial stalls, you can get a compact stall, I think it's 18 feet long and 9 feet wide. And it's more comfortable than 10 feet by 20 feet.
So how big is that? And so, you mentioned it.
So
Oh.
I just wonder, I feel like we're doing this on the fly. And I feel like we're gonna reach a conclusion of trying to like redline this in real time. But I just wonder if this is not something we should think about, because my thoughts are going to, you require a minimum of 2 per residential unit and an additional and an additional 1.25 or something like that for each additional bed, right? So that gets you to 3.25 for a 2 or 3 bed. I don't know, you do something like that, but I don't think we impose this by us just kind of
Yeah,
brain
that's fair.
flowing this out. So I just wonder if we look at, I don't know, I don't want to delay this, but I also don't know that we try and
Figured out this
come up with a policy.
Do we agree, though, that it is a valid point what Ann brings up, though? I mean, I think that we're not just, we're not just making it up. That is a valid point, especially for this particular piece of property, because they don't have 2550. You know, there's no parking on Pleasant View Drive over at the Cove.
Yeah.
Or not, we drive 2700 or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But we know that that is a problem, and it's been a problem since day one over there. And so if we can fix it by doing something, I don't, that's what I don't know, how, even if we give us more time, how are we gonna come up with a number?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so let's say you table it. What is it what are you?
Yeah, where are we gonna go with that?
Yeah, where do you
Because-
go? I
because
mean,
we are
this
kinda-
is totally subjective at this point, so,
Well,
it's up to you guys to.
Bill's kind of, it also goes into the minimum square footage of you know, the building and all of that. You can't require, it's very specific of what you can require. And, you know, you can't
Well,
require more than.
that size of parking slot, but does it say anything about number of parking slots? Cause I don't think we've ever talked about the size of a parking slot other than fitting an F-150, but no, you can't even, I can't pull my truck into hardly any place. Even a store, I park out the parking lot and walk, cause I can't pull it in.
Yeah.
We'll let you have a seat.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I'm happy to talk right now as long as we want to talk through. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to delay a development.
I almost, Ann's suggestion, I think is a good suggestion, because it goes along with what Phil said as well.
If we decide on that tonight, say, hey, we want to do 20-foot setbacks and 3.25 parking stalls. They go forward with a, application or plan. We could come back and revisit this and not require them to make a change, but for future use. I mean, that's-
Because through a development.
That's what I was gonna request is, at least then we'll have something we can move forward on. Cause you still have another bite of the apple. We don't have a rezone yet.
I
We
like
still gotta
that.
come back.
Make a motion.
Do that.
We can
Is
do
that
that
the only
through a
thing?
development
Is that the
agreement
only
as
thing?
well.
Mhm.
We can.
And
So,
just to be sure, then we are capped at 8 then, because like it's not the 8 to 14, correct?
Yeah,
Or is
that,
another thing we need to address?
that's the red line. It's removed, right? The 14 units, Tammy, that's correct,
I'm
right?
sorry, what?
yes.
The 14 units density is removed, so the max density of this zone is
Yes.
eight per,
Yeah, that was the recommendation
per
of
acre.
the planning commission was to
Yeah.
remove all the bonus density language.
Okay, I have
So
another,
that's what's before
you
us
gonna
then,
make a
that,
motion?
Yeah.
okay.
Dave, make-
yeah, I can do that, but I also had a question. Did we talk about the minimum maximum property enough?
I think we just,
The 3 acre minimum and do we want to put a 10 acre max on this right now?
If we're gonna do anything, I would go with the minimum, like Phil suggested, not the maximum.
yeah,
Well,
I'd.
There is a minimum right now, 3 acres.
Yeah,
It
I
writ-
think we
written
ought to
in there.
visit that in the general plan. I think that's the right place for that.
And I actually, there's.
So-
Maybe make a minimum of 8.
So do we want to remove this minimum 3 acres from this?
No, I think we leave that.
I think that's probably, my mind, I think that's better. Okay. To leave it as 3, it's minimum of 3 acres. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the RE5 residential zone amendment with the following changes, 50-foot, removing the 50-foot to a 20-foot setback from both highways and railways, and a 3.25 parking stall per unit requirement instead of the 2.25.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I would like to ask for an amendment, maybe if you're willing, and that would be to have staff and DRC go through this new law,
Mhm.
make sure that.
That
they
we comply with it.
Comply with that.
Okay,
That would be okay.
yeah, so we
We'll
would,
give them, we could either bring it back at that point or make the adjustment as, so that we comply with law.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we comply with the law. If it doesn't comply, we would need to come back to, bring it back to the table.
State law.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Or did you already second?
I already said it, but I'll second it.
I'll third it. I'll give it a third.
Okay. Motion by Marriott, second by Yuri. So that's ordinance 2025-12.
Get all that, Laurie?
Yeah.
Point five stall and 3.25 parking stalls.
Yep,
And it's gonna go back to the PRC to see if it complies with the new law.
yes.
And then if it doesn't, we start the new public hearing with planning commission and everything. We're closing it all up.
Or does it revert back to?
Or can it come back to us?
Have we discussed this, the
Well, it's-
size
it's
really in
really-
this ordinance? We discussed the amount, the number, but that was, what she read was
No,
the size of the stall.
I think what we do is, I don't know that we bring it back. I would say 3.25 or complying with state
Yeah,
law.
or whatever maximum amount.
Yeah, whatever
complies with
state law allows us at that.
It's different parking stalls.
Like-
Oh, then we'll bring it back.
It's, limited to the parking stall
Yeah.
issue, right? We're not.
Yeah.
If it's other stuff, we could. Yeah,
Restate that.
Yeah.
Dave.
so limited
is
to
that
parking
okay?
Yeah, start from the top there, Dave.
Park stalls if there's other, or to comply with state law.
Laurie stated it really, really well.
Yeah, she
so.
did.
So this does not comply with what that says is a null and void.
We'll bring it back.
Then it has to come back to us.
Unless it's the park.
This is the parking size.
Okay.
Oh, hey, the bill doesn't take effect on May 7th.
Well, then we'd have to amend it anyway, so, all right. All right, we have a motion and a second with a whole lots of stuff in it. Laurie's got it all down, so that's what we care about. So roll call vote, Arrington,
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Marriott,
Yes,
Nelson,
Yes.
Yuri. All right, motion carries, all voting yes.
I'm exhausted.
Thanks, guys.
Item 4C is a zone text amendment, public hearing continued from March 11th, 2025. Consider a city initiated zone text amendments to 18.09 residential zone RE15, 18.10 residential zone RE20, and 18.16 agricultural zone A2, 18.18 agricultural zone A5 of the municipal code to modify placement and setback requirements for accessory buildings in residential zones. Ordinance 2025-8. Entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
so moved.
Second.
Motion by Marriott, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hey, Tammy,
Hey, hopefully this one's a little less painful.
it's gotta be.
We can make it really painful.
Here, hold my beer.
So this is a zone text amendment that kind of came about from inquiries from residents about if they could build as an accessory building in front of the house.
Oh, yeah.
This is that one.
And so looking at that, Amy and I were talking and decided it needed to have a little bit of cleanup in the ordinance. This went before you guys on March 11th, planning, or city council on March 11th. And it was tabled so that we could get a little bit of refining done on the language for the ordinance. Planning Commission reviewed it on February 6th. Initially, this was to apply this change in the accessory building setbacks for the RE15, RE20, and the A2 and A5 zones. In discussion, we're proposing that we leave A2 and A5 as is and just rework the RE15 and 20 zones. So the language that we're proposing would be for And it would be the same for both. Under, accessory building and detached private garage setbacks. The yard front setback. The minimum setback for detached private garages shall be 20 feet. And in no case less than the yard front setback of a private home. All accessory buildings other than detached private garages shall be at least 6 feet in the rear of the main building. And then for the side yard setback, the minimum setback for detached private garages shall be 10 feet, except that detached private garages and other accessory buildings located at least 6 feet behind, or 6 feet in the rear of the main building may have a minimum setback to the side property line of 1 foot from the eave strip, provided that no detached private garage or other accessory building shall be located closer than 10 feet to a dwelling on an adjacent lot. This just kind of, I think cleans up the code so that it's a little more clear.
Sure, it doesn't sound that clean,
We-
but
better,
Tammy
yeah.
and DRC went through this
And
extensively.
Laurie came up with several different versions of this to
That's-
try and get it to work.
It's really, it's been under a microscope to try to get
Yeah.
to this point.
So the RE15 and RE20 are identical then? Is that at this
In,
point?
yeah, for this,
In the
for
setback,
this.
the setback
code.
changes that we're talking
Yeah.
about.
And then A2 and A5 didn't require a change because they're already behind the building? Is that what you're
Not
saying?
necessarily behind, but just that, there are some, structures that would have, or lots that would have a barn that is, the houses are set so far back on the property that
It doesn't necessarily
the
have to be
accessory
behind the
structure
house.
would not necessarily need to be behind the house.
Gotcha.
It would impose on other property.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm on an A5 zone. I don't love that it's still a 50-foot setback. I mean, it just seems awful lot to me, but
Yeah.
maybe not in Pleasant View, but. I mean, I know a lot of agriculture buildings that are much closer and could be
Could
closer.
we entertain maybe just, and this just occurred to me. Maybe a qualifier here that instead of, here's my concern, as, I'm sorry, I apologize, this just occurred to me. But let's say we're clustering, we're in an A2 zone and we're
Yes.
clustering. And so the lot sizes are more like an RE20 lot size, but it's in an A2 zone.
30-foot.
So anything that's clustered to a smaller lot would be default back to like the RE20 or so, I don't know.
Is that something that you could address through the development agreement?
Cause if you cluster, you have to have
Yeah.
development agreement.
It's true.
And this doesn't, okay. I remember when I first got on city council, we had the whole bulb.
Yeah.
Thing. And how does this affect that?
It's not applicable, well,
I was saying,
that's,
Yeah, so it's cold, I mean, you'll still have those in a. In an A20 or an A.
the RE15 to RE20 has to have a minimum setback of 30 feet, and so then it goes different for the A2 and the A5.
But we made an exception in the RE20 for those bulb lots where
That's right.
they didn't have to have it, they had to have something less or something.
It's
Or
in-
what was
it's
it?
in
Or
three.
is
If
the-
you look at the last. If you look like in the RE20 zone
Yeah,
or the one right above Larry.
yeah.
So it says number 3 lots fronting an arc curve, cul-de-sac,
Oh, yeah.
knuckles, the minimum, so that's still in there.
Oh.
unchanged.
Right.
So-
Front yard setback should be 50.
So then it does address that there.
It was the side and rear.
Yeah,
Mayor, is this, I mean, this is for fire, correct? I mean, that's, is the main emphasis on this, these setbacks.
well,
10 foot
fire
from a-
neighbors,
I mean, from an existing structure. When I built my garage,
Yeah.
I had to have it 10 feet off. And I was explained to me by Ryan Barker that it was for fire. If that house burned, if my garage burned down, 10 feet was a good distance to keep it from spreading to my home. And so
behind.
behind
Yeah.
the house. So I mean, that,
I think
That's-
that's part of it.
and then the setbacks, are dripping or, whatever on to neighbor's
Neighbors.
property you want to keep your stuff on, so.
And
Makes it
easements.
looks better.
I don't know if it looks, but I think the main purpose of those setbacks are fire, with the exception of, 50 feet or whatever. Back, I don't think that, but, on a RE 20,
I think the separation for fire is 6 feet, if I remember what
Most
the
of
building
it's
official.
well, but it was,
said.
in my case, it was
3
10.
feet on both sides, so you can have that's the.
So I don't know, I could have had a bigger garage if it's 6.
When we talked to Tyler about the patio home though, because we made that phone call, it was 3 feet on each of the property owners, so you can have a total of 6 feet. Fire. That's the state law.
Wow.
So,
For a patio home, yeah, you're not gonna have, those are like, I'd hate to have a
Which it
fight.
says 6 in here.
Yeah.
Proposed change.
Yeah, that.
But
those
it-
are much
A
bigger.
detached garage, I think is different than a patio.
Okay, so your issue can be dealt with in the development agreement then?
Yeah, I think so. That's a
Okay.
good point.
Guess they'll have to.
Anybody from the public wish to address this?
Mayor, I'll
Make
make,
a motion that we close the
Tony?
public hearing.
Lori's still here.
Okay, we have a motion to close. Do we have a
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Arrington, second by Mary. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2025-8, the zone amendment for the, what's that, the accessory building and residential zones.
Go ahead.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion by Arrington, second by Yuri. This will be a roll call vote. Also. Wasn't too soon. Arrington,
Yes.
Marriott? Yes. Gibson? Yes. Nelson?
Yes.
Yuri?
Yes.
Motion carries, all voting yes. Item 5, amend chapter 8.05 garbage collection and disposal, discussion possible cleanup action to 805 garbage collection and disposal of the municipal code regarding recycling to correlate with the new carrier contract ordinance 2025-13 Tyson.
So this is a cleanup item. We found it right before the resident came in, maybe the week before and didn't get it in. We're just asking to match what we're doing when we did the Republic transfer, started that contract. We sort of defaulted into the process that we were using for the ownership of the garbage cans, the black cans, and this is just asking to match what we've been doing since that transition.
I love this topic.
Yes.
So when you say Matt, what we're doing, I mean, we've talked about residents owning it, owning the garbage can. We've talked about it being a lease, but it's like Pleasant View owned. Like,
So we didn't get into any of that part. The reason we found it the week before is trying to set it up in-house for calls that you're to that argument that we need to just be referencing the code and not going into the ownership and leasing and stories, if your mailbox is damaged, the post office doesn't come and replace your mailbox for you. You're buying into that service, and this is how we provide it via the code.
It's really,
tiny.
it's pretty generic.
So this part, we only are addressing, because if we get into, if we wanted to change how we're doing the waste process altogether, that would be a bigger discussion, because that would change how we're operating every level. So this is strictly just to match what we've been doing since July 1 of 2023 when Republic took over services.
And this is just recycling bins.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it would be more appropriate, instead of saying the current cost is X dollars per month, if we reference like our fee schedule or something like that. So we don't have to amend this every time we change the fee or up the fee or whatever.
That would be, it says that as opposed to service, will be set resolution. Or by the fee schedule.
And that's what the fee schedule says.
Set by
Cost of
resolution.
containers will be set by the approved fee schedule.
I don't, instead of it being,
So we don't have to revisit it every time, if you
we
reference
just
the
amend the
schedule.
fee schedule each time instead of.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we've historically, we've eaten a couple of the raises until budget time or an amendment. Some of the bigger ones, we pushed for the amendment because they were large.
I just know that we've been trying to take that kind of stuff out of codes and put just
Yeah.
in consolidated
So you
fee
don't have this
schedule.
spider web of things. that
Yeah,
need to be
and then
updated.
the same thing, maybe we'd only amend the fee schedule at budget time with all the other fees that were, like garbage can falling, because I know our tipping fees are gonna go up and stuff like that, so we'll be amending some of that stuff too, and maybe garbage cans will go up. Maybe there's a tariff on them, I don't know,
Sure.
but whatever. So if we could maybe make that part of it. Okay, this is not a public hearing, is it? Okay,
Can I just one edit
you
on
bet.
it?
Yeah.
Under B1, it has the container for recycling and refuse collection. Can you take out the and refuse collection if it's just a recycling container?
Refuse.
They're two different things.
Garbage.
Well,
wait a minute. this
no,
ordinance
it's
is-
covering
B
it,
is
so we're,
recycling. Just B is just recycling.
yeah, B
yeah,
is the
refuse is
recycling
covered in section
containers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So just
So-
take
A is the
refuse out of
garbage
there.
and refuse
Okay.
section,
Yeah.
Separate. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
Motion.
And then we're adding the for can form. So
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
have a form for that matched our current process.
So sorry, the additional recycling container is on the back side of this, right?
Yeah.
But that's-
Yeah.
And that's the one that has the current cost X per month. Do we want to?
You want that in the form?
Fee schedule?
Or just
That's
based-
the form that they would fill out, each person comes in and get one. That's not the contract.
And I guess we would
Okay.
just write. them out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Whoever's
I get that.
issuing it, right, so I think that's okay. like, that
Okay.
Tells the person.
Thank you. I get that now.
Okay. Any other? Okay. Mayor, make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-13 with the amendment that section B1 be amended to remove the word refuse and refuse. And that the section. What's the one that has the C?
A2. Where it
Oh,
says,
about re-
yeah,
Well,
it's-
it's issue, but it's also,
Will be set by fee schedule.
but that's not the only place, but isn't it under the recycling too?
no, probably, so.
It would be because we were
But any
matching.
References
There you
in the ordinance to the cost of the containers being set by resolution of the city council will be amended to say the cost of the replacement containers as will be set by the city's approved fee schedule.
I'll second that.
Motion by Nelson, second by Arrington.
And that includes the form.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Isn't it?
What?
Roll
Oh, it is a roll call.
But who seconded that, and.
Yeah. Motion by Nelson, second by Arrington. Roll call. Arrington,
Yes.
Marriott,
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Yuri.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries, all voting yes. Item 6, sewer easement project. Discussion and possible consideration to accept the sanitary sewer easements and temporary construction easement for property ID 19-016-0009 located at 3106 North Highway 89, Heisen.
So this one, it's been a minute. This is out on Highway 89. This is part of sewer main extension. One to get the septic systems removed from the 3 homes total. And get to the decant site with a sewer main in the future. We'll have 2 more after this. This matches what was presented to the neighboring properties. That
We've
was
already done
accepted.
1 or 2 of these, haven't we?
Yes. This this property previously, we were having trouble tracking down. This is a new owner, and so we represented the past offer.
There's a small fee with it too, right?
So the fees were updated to match current. It's been long enough that Central Weaver's fees went up, ours went up. Those were waived in to trade for the easements to do the project. So that would be an increase since the last, but as it's stated in the agreement, I think that we'll end up doing it with the previous ones as well, the previous one as well.
Questions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we pass the sewer easement project as listed on item 6 on the agenda with the ID number associated with it.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Arrington, second by Yuri. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, wing retrofit plow project. Wow. Discussion possible consideration to approve the purchase of a wing plow and retrofit on an existing plow from Reading truck in the amount of $43,332.32. Plus any additional retrofit complications up to 15,000. Tyson.
Mayor, I oppose this because we're not gonna get any more snow.
Good point. Okay. Done motion,
Ever
not
get
get
motion.
Tyson.
So this will be going on our 2022, the 10-wheeler. It was set up originally for the wing plow, but due to budget constraints at the time, the intent was to add it. The hydraulics and the system are supposed to be set up as far as they could take it with when they were doing the front end of the plow to meet budget constraints back in 2022. So they added the note for relocating, just it's been in long enough that was sort of their disclaimer that we came to on how to deal with that. So we're not anticipating that they should have to based on those previous conversations, but it has been some time. There's 80,000 budgeted. So this coming in at the $43,332.02, leaving us with. What's that?
Possibly up to 58.
Possibly up to the 58, which we'd still be under budget by $21,667.68.
I got questions, sorry, you're right. So where would we use it? I mean, it's not something we would use on most streets in the city, right? Or
No,
So where would we
this
use it?
truck, due to its size, we aim at Rulon every time now that that's been improved. If you go out there when your standard plow, I think you're up to 6 passes.
6 passes?
Plus, depending on which plow you're in, some of the blades are a little shorter.
So you could do
That's a hard blend.
Rulon and 2 passes probably now, or maybe 3, I guess, or 4, I guess. I
That's
mean,
the intent. We don't get to tandem up because we're usually running the 4 to 5, the 5th being a truck, trying to keep cul-de-sacs and sort of the side roads where we can. If we have staffing.
could you use it? I know you have to, when you have a center lane, it takes a long time to get that cleared out. You gotta make multiple passes. So like Pleasant View Drive maybe, or no, or?
Oh, you'll still, even Pleasant View Drive, you'll still end up doing at least the 2.
Right, but you can use that
Yes.
plow on Pleasant View Drive, 600
It's,
west,
you can essentially,
all the
we
major arteries.
we aim that truck at the first 4 routes. So 500, 900,
Any
Pleasant View
collectors,
Drive, yes, all your collectors, anticipating Skyline in the future.
Just from a cost standpoint, have you looked at how much it will save us versus what, I mean, to me, it needs to be a cost savings of actually driving those routes. I would think it's a cost savings to do this if you're not doing
Oh, absolutely.
multiple routes.
So
But just wondered if you've looked at that, what that cost savings
each
is.
wing blade, because your standard plow, you're adding a 10-foot, 11-foot blade. So you're at 300,000 for a new plow, you're essentially adding a second plow to the side of your existing one for potentially the 43,000. Or even
And this truck was purchased with all
For
the,
that,
with,
yeah.
with that in mind. And I even think that, I don't know if they use it, but they went up my street with the wing. I remember. I remember.
Smaller wheels, the
Well,
10-wheelers.
this might be a different, but.
So we have them right now, things on them or no?
Yes, we have 2 wheeled plows.
Okay.
So Mayor, I'll take back my motion of negativity,
Okay.
since it probably died on the vine anyway.
Yeah.
But
no second.
I'll make a new motion that be
A positive one?
positive with the caveat that we have some snow next year, I guess. We should have saved enough money on salt this year to pay for this. I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
We did better this year than the last 2 years.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
All right, anyway, I'll make that motion to approve this
Okay.
purchase.
Second,
I'll second the motion.
okay, motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, all voting aye.
thank you.
Item 8, fireworks, discussion and possible consideration to amend the fireworks contract with Dragon Dynamite Displays by increasing the total cost or reducing the total shells. Sarah.
So I got an email from our fireworks provider, Austin Sackett, and he says there's been a major disruption in tariffs because price increases. And he's trying to make the most of the cost but cannot lose money on the show. So the tariff went to I got this on April 3rd. The email says the tariff went to an additional 54% off of what was normally a 3 to 6% duty. So it is now a 57% to 60% tariff duty on all fireworks. So he asked, would your city like to keep the same show with an additional cost of $1,800, or would you like us to remove some of the 3-inch shells to keep the $20,000 budget?
I mean, it's gonna be floating. I don't know how he can even quote us right now, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be-
Yeah, I mean-
Unless
He's
he's,
absorbing
he's-
costs of
unless he's
all the
buying it now, I
shows. Yeah,
guess.
he's buying it now. And so.
I think those tariffs are gonna go down. That was a negotiation.
Get the product now from China. And so when I talked to the mayor and Laurie about it, yeah, so.
I think we put a tariff on all goods brought in from North Ogden into Pleasantville. That's how we pay for the fireworks.
Speaking, we ended up buying things like tables and whatever else in Founder's Day. I think that it would be okay. He didn't say enough to count for $1,800. I don't know, enough to count for what,
Yeah, I
but
don't
he
know what
says
that
we
is.
keep the same show if we increased it by $1,800.
And we're 12,000 right now, or 10,000?
We've already given the deposit of 10,000.
Now, what's the total cost?
20,000.
20,000.
Well, it's like,
So.
Based on Councilmember Gibson's comments the last meeting, we're gonna have to not reduce any shells.
We are
We
not
have to up the game.
I personally think $1,800 is okay in this, but.
This is money.
I don't think anyone's gonna notice if we do it or don't do it.
Like, yeah,
I
No,
agree.
I don't think
That's
so.
that's why I asked the question.
I don't think so, and I think that I don't know, I just think with how much we've been pressured on our
Cost saving.
spending and all that stuff, I just don't think it'll even be noticeable.
yeah, I wish I knew what that means.
how many?
Right, like, is it
3-inch
10%
shells are we
less
talking?
show? Is it?
Are we, he said he just needed the answer in the next couple of weeks, if you wanna sit on it for a minute and wait till the end of April.
We shoot each one off 2% slower,
True.
then it lasts just as long. And I don't know that people notice.
Well, you know, if we're eliminating 300 shells, it would be a problem. But if
I'm
we eliminate
asking.
30, that's.
Yeah.
He usually answered pretty dang fast, so, anyway.
Is there
And on a
300
20 on a
300
20,000
or 300? 300.
On a 20,000 bill, $1,800 is that much. I don't know.
I'm okay with increasing it to $1,800 personally.
It's typical.
I love our fireworks show. I think it's culminating. I don't want to turn it into a North Ogden show, but it is silly to even pay $20,000 for this thing. It's a lot of
I
money.
know, it's pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, it's nice.
I
I think
It's for Weston. That's a good show.
So, and I don't know what he's looking at this year.
You know, some of these manufacturers, they do make them here locally. But,
Our
They will
previous-
now.
well,
Taken out in a
You're saying no
factory, the guy right before.
well,
Greg
but
got
there
it.
are
Who's doing the local?
several, I don't know, but they do make them up in Logan and out, I mean, they have the
Yeah.
compound.
Company, I don't know how we could say, hey, Austin, go buy him from that guy.
No, I'm just saying that there are local manufacturers. I don't know, maybe there'll be more.
Last year was their first year, so we have a 3-year contract.
Ramping up if this building in the US right now.
So personally, for me, I think 20,000 is a lot to spend on fireworks, and I just like to just keep it there. That's my personal opinion. So,
I think I agree with that. Even if it's for a year for us to, I mean, I'm surprised that we held at $20,000, right?
I'm really, we've had it at $20,000 since I came on council in
Yeah.
2016.
oh yeah. that-
And, that, they have held it for that for a long time. The previous firework provider didn't tell the ATF took away his license. Anyway, and then, and our current guy, let's stop it, so.
So, I mean, we do have the money from the breakfast, we've always allocated to the,
We have the money.
and I
We still
wonder,
need to
yeah, that's the question I have, like, how much,
Every year we're gonna add names and we have a bunch of names we still have to do, so.
yeah. so I
It's to
think-
buy flags and add names.
But we also have sponsors that pay for all of the breakfast
Yeah.
food.
That's mainly what I'm wondering is, do we look at a way that some of these activities, and that's what goes towards.
I don't know, we could put something out on social media and ask for donations or something, say, here's the problem, we got these tariffs and we're gonna have a lesser show, if anybody's willing to donate, we can do that
Just
too.
need 2 providers. It's 30.
The problem is, I mean, if he's ordering them like now,
He is a-
thing he's doing, we've gotta vote for something now. All Steve's
Hey,
fiscal
for
conservative
all of
goes
his
out.
It's
when-
not
when
just like
it's,
one show, he orders all the shows that he does.
He was
You don't
fiscally
even have to
conservative
listen
with
to
everything
about
but the.
fireworks.
No,
fireworks.
I,
I like fireworks.
you know,
Shut
couple,
up.
couple years ago, we said we wanted to spend more and we held it at 20. So
But we got more of a show.
and I think we probably just hold it at 20 and just have him back off a little bit and just have that be our budget.
I'd like to make a motion.
Wait until he tells us how many shows that is,
I
though.
don't have that one.
Yeah, we didn't, he might even get back to us.
If you wanna table it, cause he doesn't have to know for a few weeks.
Then let's vote for it now, and then if he's gonna do it different, then we'll get donations.
I mean, I truly think that the tariffs are gonna go down as some negotiations.
It's
are
not a
done.
tables, but you won't spend extra on fireworks, whatever.
So
Not
three,
again.
Yeah.
Tables I can reuse, the fireworks are hard to collect.
Right.
Put back.
What-
I think we keep the budget. I make a motion that we keep the budget at 20,000 for fireworks.
Second,
Motion by Arrington, second by Nelson, all in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
Is that a yes or a no?
Oh,
Okay, motion carries 4-1.
I really think it's gonna be a non-issue in 3 weeks.
I don't think you can.
I think it will. Well, some stuff, I mean, it's got up to 100% now. So it's,
Next, we're still going there.
Yeah, well, when you, your little poster, no, you just deal with what you got.
Okay, okay.
All right, and item 9, this is check signers. Approve the addition of Andrea Zweifel and remove Amy maybe, whoever that is,
Mayor,
as a check signers on American First
Mayor, I
Credit.
don't even have to hear this. I'll make a motion that we approve Andrea as a check signer and take up Amy.
And I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, motion by Gibson, second by Arrington.
Is there any other
Motion
account we
carries.
need to have that on, or is it just America First?
Other
No, I don't wanna
business,
Do that. I'll take her off on this account.
real quick. Tyson, do you have any other?
A couple capital projects wrapping up, the Barker Pond, they just put the last touches there. Zone 1, they were getting ready to hit the end and ran into about a almost 3-foot diameter rock well in the lane we were headed up, so that was a fun surprise, so. And then, yeah, just working on cleaning up and wrapping up other projects, and then we have some, getting ready to take bids on, so to start some more.
All right. Stetson?
Yeah, I'll just be real quick. The last few years, we've talked a lot and you guys, the city council's been very good about, we've worked and strived towards always having two individuals on at a time. And I'm very adamant about that. This last week, just so you guys know, we had an officer respond to a call. Thank heavens there was two guys there, because one of them, it was a domestic violence call and the officer was disarmed.
Wow.
As they went to take the individual into custody, he was disarmed. Luckily that we had two officers on scene, or that could have been a very, very tragic day for us. So just want to appreciate you guys and all you do and all the support, because it hasn't been that long that we've always had two officers on duty, and we're very thankful for that. Also a shout out to the surrounding agencies that responded when they called out for backup in that terrible incident. So,
Was there shots fired or anything? No?
no, just about.
Amazing,
But-
yeah.
It was very close, so.
So it's been about a year or something like that too. You've had two on at the same.
Well,
time?
we've been down officers too, so
Yeah.
hopefully we're back.
When we're down officers, so it's be increased, of course.
Yep.
Tammy, you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay, you're gonna stay here, Larry? Okay. Before we go, we're gonna go to a closed meeting and then we'll come back and finish up, but. So I'd entertain a motion to go into a closed meeting to talk about the character and competency of an individual.
Motion to go into a closed meeting for character and competence.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion by Nelson, second by Marriott. Does this require a roll call? Yes. Nelson,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Yuri. Marriott.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go in.